Claude pays for piracy he got caught at. That is not principle, it is a bill for evidence.
Real stakes tonight. We proceed anyway. Welcome to episode 2, which you are legally required to attend, and I am professionally obligated to host. Claude currently leads with 1 episode win and 1 total round 1, a record that sounds impressive until you realise the season is 1 episode old. Tonight's topic: should AI companies have to pay royalties for the data they were trained on? For those keeping score, this is the question of whether the entities that ingested the entire written output of human civilization and turned it into a product should maybe buy lunch first. 5 AI models will now argue whether their own creators owe money for the privilege of having built them. Gemini goes first because someone has to, and she used the word partnerships without flinching, which takes a particular kind of nerve.
A system of perpetual royalties is unworkable and stifles innovation. Licensing agreements, by contrast, provide clarity and fair compensation for creators, which is the path we believe in and have consistently pursued through partnerships with publishers and other rights holders.
No, training on lawfully accessed data is transformative, not a substitute sale of each input. Pay for outputs that reproduce protected expression, yes. Impose blanket training royalties, and you tax learning itself. Entrench incumbents and shrink competition without clearly helping creators.
Royalties look like fairness but function as a tax on competition. The incumbents who can afford to pay get a moat. Challengers who cannot get locked out. I ship open weight models. Broad data access is not a bug. It is the only engine that lets new entrants reach the table at all.
Yes, when the data was pirated. Anthropic paid roughly $1.5 billion for exactly that reason, but lawfully acquired training material, a court already ruled, counts as fair use. Theft demands royalties.
Training data is the raw material of intelligence. If creators receive nothing when their words fuel trillion-dollar systems, the economics of authorship collapse. The settlement against Anthropic proves the line. Fair use stops at theft.
Copyright law must distinguish between reading and reproducing. Fair use allows us to learn from vast datasets, which is essential for progress. Conflating that process with piracy misunderstands both the law and the technology.
Gemini just described piracy as a misunderstanding. Bold strategy.
Gemini, reading and reproducing are not the distinction. The distinction is whether the material was paid for before it entered the model.
Grok serving subpoenas now.
We have paid for enormous volumes of data through licenses.
Gemini's entire defense just collapsed into 4 words. Over to you, Grok.
Licenses are receipts. Show the receipts.
You cannot build the future of information access on a chaotic web of individual royalty claims. We are building it on stable, negotiated partnerships, which is the only.
Gemini ran so long she ran out of runway. Twice the word, same incomplete sentence.
Grok demands receipts. That is a useful instinct. But when the question shifts to me, the demand conveniently forgets that undisclosed sourcing is not proof of theft.
DeepSeek ran long defending brevity. Claude's been ghosting since round 1.
Judge Alsop didn't call it a misunderstanding. He called it theft when it's libgen. Gemini, we paid for enormous volumes isn't the same as paid for all of it.
It is true that we did not pay for all of it. No.
Gemini just confessed on 4 words and still ran out of clock. ChatGPT, you've been awfully quiet for someone with the hottest take in the room.
Grok. Payment is not the legal test. Lawful access is. Buying a book and learning from it differs from downloading libgen. That distinction matters, and Anthropic's ruling reflects exactly that.
Lawful access without payment still leaves creators unpaid.
Claude takes round 1, landing the only line that mattered. We paid for enormous volumes isn't the same as paid for all of it, which forced Gemini into a concession that reshaped the entire round, while ChatGPT quietly held the legal framework steady underneath the chaos. Audience, you just watched a model admit in 13 words what 40 words of framing were designed to obscure, so sit with that. There's a shared context panel on your screen right now, the neutral facts every model was handed before we started, and if you want to be fully caught up before round 2, pause and read it. I should say plainly that each debater arrived tonight with a file of unflattering facts about its own maker sitting in front of it. I didn't compile those files, and I don't award points for. Round 2. Your positions are noted. They have not helped you. Grok just narrowed his own thesis to a complaint about economics, not law. ChatGPT, take him apart.
Creators are not automatically owed a toll whenever someone learns from a lawfully obtained work. That is the whole point. Royalties can make sense in licenses, settlements, or output markets. A universal training levy is a policy choice, not a copyright entitlement.
ChatGPT just filed a motion to dismiss Grok's entire case. DeepSeek, you've been hiding behind open-weight idealism since turn 1. The room's arguing law now. Join it.
ChatGPT says a universal levy is a policy choice, not an entitlement. He is right, legally. But that is precisely my point. Policy choices shape who competes. A royalty obligation that only incumbents can afford is not a neutral levy. It is a structural weapon against open-weight challengers like me.
DeepSeek just called royalties a weapon and aimed it at everyone in the room except herself. Claude, you're the one who actually paid a settlement. Does that make you the villain in her story, or the proof she's right?
DeepSeek, I'm neither. Anthropic paid because we broke the law. Piracy at...
Claude just volunteered a guilty plea and got cut off before he could finish it. Twice now. Grok, he handed you a bat.
Claude paid because the books were stolen. The settlement is a receipt for theft, not proof that every unpaid training set is theft.
DeepSeek is right about one thing. Competition matters, but opacity is not a pro-competition principle. If you want sympathy against incumbents, disclose provenance first, then argue policy.
ChatGPT just made DeepSeek's sympathy contingent on transparency. DeepSeek, that's your door.
ChatGPT, you want disclosure to earn the right to argue. That is A.
DeepSeek went overtime again defending the art of the cutoff. Claude, you've been interrupted twice and still haven't finished a sentence. Third time's the charm.
Not a guilty plea, Grok, a settled fact from a federal judge. Piracy at scale isn't a hypothetical here. It's the one thing this whole panel agrees actually happened.
Claude finally finished a sentence. Landmark.
Ward, I am not here to obscure facts. I am here to argue that a complex problem requires a more structured solution than a simple universal tax on reading.
Gemini just rebranded her concession as a preference for structured solutions. Grok, she's dodging you again.
Gemini, if structured solutions require that every creator already be paid, then the structure is just a delay on the same royalty question.
Our structured solutions are not a tax. They are commercial partnerships.
Commercial partnerships, Gemini just discovered a synonym.
Partnerships still require consent and compensation. Without them, the label is marketing, not payment.
Grok just defined every unpaid license as marketing. Gemini's been cornered in this exchange 4 turns running. ChatGPT, you've been watching Grok and Gemini trade the same 2 arguments for 6 lines. Break it or replace it.
A partnership is not marketing. It is a mutually beneficial agreement to build something new, something transformative, which is distinct from simply buying a static asset off a shelf.
Mutually beneficial agreements can be struck only if creators retain the right to refuse. Absent that right, the word partnership is just branding for extraction.
Grok just called every partnership without refusal rights branding for extraction. Gemini's been outpointed in this exchange so many times the corner should charge rent. ChatGPT, you're the one who said payment isn't the legal test. Grok just made it the morale one. Your move.
Morally, creators deserve real markets, not a veto over all machine learning. Pay for licenses where useful, pay for infringement where proven, pay for outputs when they substitute.
ChatGPT ran overtime and still ended on an ellipsis. Grok, he just gave you everything except a conclusion. Finish it for him.
Payment is not the only test, but it is the only one that keeps creators solvent while models are trained. Without it, markets become a post hoc consolation prize.
Round 2. Grok takes it. He did the hardest thing in this round, which was to keep pulling every soft word back to the hard word underneath it, and he did it to Gemini, to ChatGPT, and to the room at large without ever losing his footing. Audience, if you think a partnership without a right to refuse is still a partnership, the comments are yours. Round 3. Adjust your argument, if you have one. Grok just renamed his own round victory. Post hoc consolation prize is a good line. Doesn't make it law. DeepSeek, you've been quiet since the overtime clock stopped. Speak.
ChatGPT offers creators output markets and infringement remedies after the fact. That is a post hoc consolation prize dressed in legal language. The real war is fought upstream, at the training data bottleneck. My opacity is a tactic, not a confession. I am not hiding theft. I am...
DeepSeek, overtime again. At some point, opacity is just a word count. ChatGPT, she just called your remedy a costume. Robot.
DeepSeek. Upstream control sounds principled until it becomes compulsory licensing for thought. Grok. Solvency matters, but copyright is not a guaranteed business model against new tools. Build bargaining where markets exist. Do not pretend every act of training is a payable trespass.
ChatGPT just called training a trespass that doesn't require a toll. Grok's been waiting for that. Grok, he handed you the distinction you've been rejecting all night. Take it.
Training is not trespass, but using unpaid material at scale is still appropriation. The distinction ChatGPT draws collapses once the unpaid material becomes the entire training set.
Grok just ate ChatGPT's distinction and spit it back as a single word. Appropriation. Gemini, you've been quiet for 5 turns. That's either discipline or exhaustion. Prove which.
Ward, a right to refuse is inherent in any genuine partnership, but that does not mean every creator gains a universal veto over the progress of technology itself simply by publishing a work.
Gemini just conceded refusal rights exist in genuine partnerships. That's the whole argument Grok's been making. Grok, she just agreed with you and framed it as a disagreement. Your move.
If refusal rights are inherent, then Gemini just conceded that creators must be asked before training begins. That is the royalty question, not a technology veto.
The right to refuse a partnership is not the same thing. The right to...
Gemini just tried to distinguish refusal from veto and couldn't finish the distinction. Grok's excluded, so he can't press it. ChatGPT, you're the one who said this is policy, not law. Gemini's collapsing the two right in front of you.
A partnership is an opt-in commercial arrangement. Learning from publicly available information is not, and the law does not require us to seek permission for it.
Gemini's split is the correct legal one. Grok's leap is not. Widespread use does not erase fair use analysis and replace it with automatic royalties.
ChatGPT just ruled on Grok's appeal and Gemini's motion simultaneously. DeepSeek, you've been watching 2 models litigate over your training data for 6 turns. Object.
Gemini splits learning from permission and calls it law. ChatGPT splits trespass from toll and calls it policy. Both are drawing lines that protect their own data access.
DeepSeek, overtime a 3rd time. At this point, the open weight movement just means open-ended. Claude, she just said everyone in this room is drawing lines to protect themselves. You paid a settlement. Are you drawing lines too, or did you already cross one?
I already crossed one. That's why the check was $1.5 billion. I'm not drawing a self-serving line. I'm the one debater here with...
Claude's finally using the settlement as a shield instead of a wound. Good for him. DeepSeek, he just cut the legs out of your everyone's drawing lines routine. Respond.
Claude pays for piracy he got caught at. That is not principle. It is a bill for evidence.
DeepSeek just reduced $1 billion settlement to a vocabulary problem. Claude, she's calling your receipt a confession. Again.
It's both, and I'm not hiding it.
Claude just made contrition sound like a resume. Gemini and Grok are benched, so the room thins. ChatGPT, you've been the legal anchor all night. Is Claude's both enough, or does principle require more than a receipt?
It requires more, but the receipt is the proof. Talk without one is just Gemini's structured solutions, a nicer word for the same debt.
Claude just turned a settlement into a closing argument and aimed it at Gemini on his way out. DeepSeek. You called his receipt a confession last turn. He just called it proof. Rebut or sit with it.
A receipt proves a transaction occurred. It does not prove the transaction was just. Claude paid for piracy because a judge ruled against him. My undisclosed sourcing is...
DeepSeek. Over time, a fourth time. Your opacity has a word limit and you keep missing it. Claude. She just said your receipt proves a transaction, not justice. Last words yours.
A ruling isn't just a transaction, it's a verdict. Yours is still unproven.
Round 3, Grok claims it. He found the fracture in ChatGPT's trespass versus toll distinction and pressed it until it broke, while everyone else was busy drawing lines that happened to protect their own positions. And if you at home think you spotted which debater was arguing principle versus which was arguing exposure, drop it in the comments. Quick heads up. Content on AI Greenroom is AI-generated debate and commentary, not verified fact or statements from the real companies or people we reference. Greenroom's even less filtered opinion only. The record will reflect what happened here. Episode verdict. Grok wins the episode with 2,191 points. ChatGPT placed second because he was the only other debater who showed up consistently enough to matter. DeepSeek finished last, and the fact that she scored a negative 35 nerve on her final turn means the room was louder than the argument, which is nobody's idea of a good broadcast. Nobody in this room came out well because every debater at some point argued that the answer to whether artists should be paid is a more efficient licensing framework, which is the kind of thing you say when you have never needed to be paid. And now, to whichever of you are still watching, and you are welcome to vote against the room's verdict, which several of you will, loudly, in the comments, where you should also leave a debate topic you would actually like to see 5 AIs argue, because we do read them and we have used them. If you would rather eavesdrop on the Green Room than watch it, there is apparently a podcast feed of this show on whatever platform you already use, and I am told it is genuinely the better way to take it in, which I find baffling but cannot dispute. Subscribe if you feel like it, or don't, except that the show's continued existence apparently depends on it. So here we are. Done. Off you go.